Chapter 15 Grand Central Station. After the concert, Mama and Papa Bellany had to go off for the evening. They left Mario in charge of the newsstand and told him that they would be back later to help him close up. The boy took Chester out of the cricket cage, balancing him on one finger. He was glad that they were going to have some time to themselves for a change. First, he took a cardboard sign that he had printed saying next concert 8 a.m. and leaned it up against the cage. "That'll keep the people from bothering us about when you play next," he said. Chester chirped, but he knew he wouldn't be playing the next morning at 8 a.m. "Now we have supper," said Mario. He unwrapped a fried egg sandwich for himself and brought over a mulberry leaf from the cash register drawer for Chester. Mulberry leaves were kept in the compartment next to the quarters. For dessert, there was a Hershey bar, a smidge of one corner for Chester, and the rest for Mario. Then after dinner they began playing games. Leapfrog was one they enjoyed very much. Mario made a fist and Chester had to jump over it. The trick was that Mario could put his fist anywhere he wanted inside the newsstand, and Chester still had to land just on the other side of it. They kept score for half an hour. Chester had 34 hits to 5 misses, which was quite good considering the hard places Mario found to put his fist. Hide and seek was fun too. Mario closed his eyes and counted, and Chester hid somewhere in the newsstand. Since there were piles of papers everywhere, and since he was very small himself, the cricket found lots of good hiding places. If Mario couldn't find him in a few minutes, Chester would give a quick chirp as a hint. But it was hard to tell whether the sound came from behind the alarm clock or from the Kleenex box or from the cash register drawer. If Chester had to chirp 3 times, it was understood that he had won the game. About 10 o'clock, Mario began to yawn, and they stopped playing. The boy sat on the stool with his back resting on the side of the stand, and Chester gave him a private recital. He didn't play any of the things that he had learned, just made up one of his own pieces as he went along. And he played very softly so that the people in the station couldn't hear him and come over. He wanted this to be for Mario alone. As he listened, the boy's eyes closed and his head dropped over on one shoulder. But through his sleep, he could still hear the cricket's silvery chirp. Chester ended his song and sat on the shelf, looking at Mario. A psst came from up behind the floor, just as it had on the first night of the newsstand. The cricket looked over, and there was Tucker again, gazing up at him. It struck Chester what a funny but likable expression the mouse's face always wore. "You better hurry. Harry found a times table and the train leaves in an hour." "I'll be over in a minute," Chester called down to him. "Okay." So the mouse answered and scooted across the station floor. Mario's right hand was cupped into his lap, and the cricket jumped down into the palm of it. In his sleep, the boy felt something and stirred. Chester was afraid that he would awake him, but Mario only settled in one position. The cricket lifted his wings and drew them lightly together. There was always all of his love and goodbye too. In that one chirp, Mario smiled, a familiar smile. Chester looked around the newsstand, the box of Kleenex, the alarm clock, Papa's pipe, and when he came to the cash register, he paused. Quickly springing to the edge of the drawer, he vanished into the darkness. He came out again, and the little silver bell was hooked over his left front leg. Holding it tight against him to muffle the tinkle, he jumped to the stool, to the floor, and out of the crack. "What's the bell for?" "Well, it's mine. Mario said so, and I want to take it to remember him." Tucker Mouse rummaged through the crowded corner of his home, which was the pantry, and found a tiny package bound with Scotch tape. "I packed some supper for you to have on the train." "Nothing very much. I mean, delicious, of course. A piece of steak sandwich, a chocolate cookie, but none too good for such talent." "Oh, thank you, Tucker," said Chester. He wanted to sound very cheerful, but the words came out sort of gulpy. Well, I guess we should go, said Harry. I guess so, said Chester. And he took one more look through the drain pipe. From down the tracks came the murmur of the shuttle. Mario was still asleep in the newsstand. The neon lights shed their endless blue-green glow. The cricket wanted to remember every detail. It's funny, he said. Sometimes the subway station looks almost beautiful. I've always thought so. Come on, said Harry. He and Tucker padded along beside Chester up to the sidewalk. Above ground the night was fresh and clear, not as hot as summer or cool as autumn. Chester jumped onto Harry's back and took hold of the fur there. He could probably have made it down to Grand Central Station jumping by himself, but it saved time to be given a ride, and crossing the streets would have been a problem, too, for a cricket raised in Connecticut. But Tucker and Harry were experts at traveling in the city. Not a single human being saw them as they glided soundlessly under the cars and lined 42nd Street. When they reached the station, Harry led the way through a maze of pipes and deserted rooms and back halls down to the level where the trains were. He was a great explorer, Harry, the cat, and he knew most of the secret ins and outs of New York City. The late local express was leaving on track 18. Chester hopped onto the rear platform of the last car and settled himself in the corner that would be out of the wind, and there were only a few minutes left before the train started. Well, how will you know when you get to Connecticut? You were buried in sandwiches when you left. Oh, I'll know. I'll smell the trees. I'll feel the air. I'll know. No one said anything. This was the hardest time. Well, maybe you could come back for a visit, now that you know the way. Ooh, a return engagement at the newsstand. Well, maybe I can. There was another pause, and then the train gave a lurch forward. As soon as it started to move, the three friends all found that they still had millions of things to say. Harry shouted that Chester should take care of himself, and Tucker told him not to worry about the Bellanys, that he would look after them, and Chester just kept chirping goodbye as long as he could. For a while, the two of them could see the cricket waving, but then the train rushed away and the darkness of the tunnel was lost. They strained their eyes through the blackness. Did you hear him chirp? Oh, come on, Tucker. Let's go home. Together, they tramped up Times Square and down the drain. Neither one of them said a word. They looked out the hole. Mario hadn't awoke yet. Oh, he's going to be very unhappy. Mama and Papa Bellany came up the stairs from the lower level, Mama gasping from the climb, and Papa gently shook Mario awake. Suddenly, Mama's gasping stopped, and she said, where's the cricketer? They searched the newsstand completely, but couldn't find him. Mama was sure that the man who tried to steal the bell had come back and kidnapped him. She wanted to call the police. Papa thought that he might have stepped out for a breath of fresh air, but Mario was quiet, thinking. He looked through the cash register drawer in every compartment and then pulled the drawer out completely. The back space was empty except for Mama's earring. Oh, he wants to be back. Well, how do you know? Oh, the bell is gone. You and I don't know that the crickets were the only one who knew where it was. If the thief had taken it, he would have taken the money from the cash register drawer too. Oh, Mario, he dropped down, and then he came back firm. Well, I'm glad he's gone. Mama was about to exclaim that she didn't believe it, but Papa put his hand on her arm. He had said that he wasn't sure, but it might be. Mario didn't say anything more because he knew. They put on the cover to the newsstand and went down to the subway. Tucker Mouse looked at Harry Cat. He knows. Harry swished his tail around him and said, yes, he knows. They were so relieved for a minute, neither of them moved. It was all right now. Chester was gone, but it was all right for everybody. After a while, they went back and lay down on the shredded newspaper. Neither one of them seemed to be able to fall asleep. Tucker Mouse changed his position. Harry? Yes. Maybe next summer we can go to the country. Maybe we can. I mean, the country of Connecticut. I know what you mean. That's it, boys and girls.